be available. No, about a cruise. We have grandchildren in two different parts of the country, and neither one of them are here. So, yeah, no, it's not.
I can't use my uncle's place, you know, where the next service is over there, when the snow tank, and if I take the plane there,
Ooh. Let's stand
that's an
up.
old show.
Yeah,
I don't wait till they put it on.
Okay.
Cantor Whitner, we need you.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.
We are using our Mishkan Tefillah blue prayer books, and we begin on page 128. How wonderful it is to be together. Hinei matov umanayim. Hinei matov umanayim shevet achim gam yachad. 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 How good it is, how sweet it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. Hinei matov שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. שלום עליכם, סלאם עליכום, שלום עליכם, סלאם עליכום, שלום עליכם, סלאם עליכום, shalom aleichem, salam aleikum. How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. Hinei ma tov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hinei ma tov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad.
We turn to page 124, 124. And please join me with this reading. We enter the sanctuary to welcome Shabbat. Within these walls, we sit surrounded by numberless generations. Our ancestors built a synagogue as a visible sign of God's presence in their midst. Throughout our long history and our endless wanderings, it has endured. A beacon of truth, love, and justice for all humanity. Its presence guided our ancestors to lives of righteousness, holding up to them a vision of their truest selves. Now we, in our turn, come into the sanctuary to affirm the sacredness of our lives. May we enter this place in peace. May holiness wrap around us as we cross its threshold. Awareness doubt the flaws within our human hearts, the harshness of the weak, that these drop away at the door. In the brightness of Shabbat, let peace settle upon us as we lift our hearts in prayers and we continue with our candlelight blessing.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehatlik ner להדליק נר של שבת.
For those who are able, we rise together for Kiddush, page 123.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם בורא פרי הגפן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר קידשנו במצוותיו ורצה בנו בשבת קודשו באהבה וברצון הנחילנו זיכרון למעשה בראשית כי הוא יום תחילה למקראי קודש זכר ליציאת מצרים כי בנו בחרת ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים בשבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש Kiddush HaShabbat. Amen.
L'chaim.
L'chaim.
We turn to page 127. There are days when we seek things for ourselves and measure failure, but what we do not gain. On Shabbat, we seek not to acquire, but to share. There are days when we exploit nature as if it were a horn of plenty that can never be exhausted. On Shabbat, we stand in wonder before the mystery of creation. There are days when we act as if we care nothing for the rights of others. On Shabbat, we remember that justice is our duty and a better world our goal. So we embrace Shabbat, day of rest, day of wonder, and day of peace. We continue on page 130 with Psalm 95.
Mafanav betodam pismirot narialo ki el gadol Adonai umelech gadol al kol Elohim asher beyado mecherei aretz מטורפות הרים לו, אשר לא הים והוא עשהו, מייבשת ידיו יצרו, כי הוא אלוהינו ואנחנו אמר איתו וצאן ידו. Welcome the Shabbat on page 138 with Lecha Dodi. Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor וזכור בדיבור אחד השמיענו אל המיוחד אדוני אחד ושמו אחד לשם ולתפארת בלי תהילה לחמדוני לקראת קלה בני שבת נקבלה לחמדוני לקראת קלה בני שבת נקבלה לקראת שבת לכו בני אלחקים מקור הברכה מראש מקדם נסוכה סוף מעשה במחשם בתחילה לחמדותי לקראת קלה בני שבת נקבלה לחמדותי לקראת קלה בני שבת נקבלה התעוררי התעוררי כי באורך קומי אורי 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 שיר דברי כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה לחמדוני לקראת קלה בני שבת נקבלה לחמדוני לקראת קלה בני שבת נקבלה.
rise together to greet Shabbat HaMalkah.
Boi v'shalom ateret malakam besimcha uv'tzolat mochemunei am segula. Boi chala lechandoni likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela lechandoni likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela.
Page 145, 145, and please join me. Teach me, O God, a blessing, a prayer, on the mystery of a withered leaf, on a ripened fruit so fair, on the freedom to see, to sense, to breathe, to know, to hope, to despair. Teach my lips a blessing, a hymn of praise, as each morning and night you renew your days. Lest my day be today as the one before, lest routine set my ways. We continue with our Chetzi Kaddish on page 144.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה בעלמא תפרח חירותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון וביומייכון ובחי דכל בית ישראל בגלה בגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן יהי שמי רבה מברך לעלם ולעלמי עלמיה יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה לעילה מן כל מלאכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה תאמירן בעלמה ואמרו amen.
We rise together, top of page 146.
Am I awake? Am I prepared? Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Can you understand? Am I awake? Am I prepared?
There is one who sings the song of his own life, finding everything within himself. There is one who leaves the circle of herself and sings the song of her people. There is one whose voice rings with the song of humanity, hoping for the highest perfection. And there is one who rises even higher, uniting with all creatures, with all worlds, filling the universe with song. Nevarech, let us bless.
Baruchu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Le'olam va'ed. Yadadai-dai-dai, 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 yadadai-dai-dai.
We We turn to page 149, 149, and please join me at the top. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, for whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way in which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise you, Adonai, our God, for whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, Hamariv Aravim, page 150.
Ahavat olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha ahavta, Amcha ahavta. Torah u'mitzvot, Chukim u'mishpatim, Otanu limadta, Otanu limadta. Al kein Adonai Eloheinu b'shochbeinu uv'kulmeinu nasiach bechukecha v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha u'b'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed ki heim chayenu be'orech yameinu Ubahem nehke yomam v'layla, nehke yomam v'layla. Ve'ahavatcha al tasir, mimenu le'olamim. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael, Ohev Amo Yisrael. On the next page. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod, Shem Kevod, Malchuto Leolam, Leolam Va'ed. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol vavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol meodecha v'hayu ha'devarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha hayom al levavecha ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
The top of page 157, and please join me. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe that we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land. The winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness. There's no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. We continue with our song of freedom, our Michamocha, page 158.
כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש. נורא תהילות עושה פלא, נורא תהילות עושה פלא, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. מלכותך ראו בניך, בוקע ים לפני משה ומרים, שאלי אנו ואמרו, שאלי אנו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. יאי די 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 די, יאי די 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 די, יאי די 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 די, יאי די 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 די.
The top of page 161, and please join me. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up, waiting to do your will. Our Hashkivenu is right there on page 160.
Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, Behamiteinu shomreinu l'chaim. Spread the shelter of your peace over us. Guide us in wisdom, compassion, and trust. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, Behamiteinu shomreinu l'chaim. Save us for the sake of your name. Shield us from hatred, sorrow, and pain. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, Behamiteinu
top of page 163. We are a people in whom the past endures, in whom the present is inconceivable without moments gone by. The Exodus lasted a moment enduring forever. What happened once upon a time happens all the time. We continue with Vishamru 162.
Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam berit olam beini ubein bnei Yisrael oti leolam leolam ki sheishet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et haaretz u'bayom hashvi'i Shabbat vayinafash.
Middle of page 165, and please join me. Prayer invites God's presence to suffuse our spirits, God's will to prevail in our lives. Prayer may not bring water to parched fields, nor mend a broken bridge, nor rebuild a ruined city. But prayer can water an arid soul, mend a broken heart, rebuild a weakened will. And we rise together for our Tefillah 166.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu v'Imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon גומל חסדים טובים וקונה הכל וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני מחיי מתים אתה רב להושיע מוריד הטל מכלכל חיים בחסד מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים סומך נופלים ורופא חולים ומתיר אסורים ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומי דומה לך מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה ונאמן אתה להחיות מתים ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי המתים אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
We continue, top of page 173. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day, and may all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all despair find purpose. May all hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat. We continue with Ritzei 174.
Ritzei קריאתם באהבה תקבל ותהי לרצון תמיד עבודת ישראל ישראל עמך אל קרוב לכל קוראיו פני אל עבדך וחוננו שפוך רוחך ותחזינה עינינו בשובך לציון ברחמים ברוך אתה אדוני המחזיר שכינתו
The top of page 179, and please join me. Grant us peace, your most precious gift, O eternal source of peace, and give us the will to proclaim its message to all the peoples of the earth. Bless our country as a safeguard of peace, its advocate among the nations. Make contentment reign within our borders, health and happiness within our homes. Strengthen the bonds of friendship and fellowship among all inhabitants of every land. Plant virtue in every soul. May the love of your name hallow every home and every heart. Praise you, Eternal One, who blesses our people with peace. Page 178.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki atahu melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki atahu melech adon lechol hashalom. Betom beinecha levarech et amcha Yisrael bechol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. ברוך אתה אדוני המברך את עמו ישראל בשלום.
Take a few moments for silent prayer.
ratzon imre fi. Yehul ratzon imre fi. Behagion libi lefanecha. Adonai tzuri ve'goali. Oh, may the words of my mouth, the meditation of my heart be acceptable before you. O God, my rock and my redeemer. Oseh shalom bimromav, uyaseh shalom aleinu, me'al kol Yisrael, me'imeru, Amen.
At this moment in our service, we take time especially to think of those in our community, those who are in need of healing of body or spirit. On the Shabbos, we think of Linda Applebaum, Cindy Silverman Bailey, Sophia Berry, Katie Bates, Callie Bond, Harold Seitling, Deborah Chargois, Karen Edwards, Edward Goldberg, Elaine Gross, Leonard Fred Halpern, Josie Hatfield, Evelyn Held, Gavin Kramer, Donald and Maida Himmel, Patty Hersberg, Norma Jill Jacobson, Corey Kressler, Bart Kolber, Jerry Lapidus, Susie Ofson, Becky Seitel and David Siegel, Liz Slive, Chrissy St. Charles, Brenda Weinstein, Jesse Weisberg, and Elisa Rosemore Whitehead. If you are thinking of a friend, a colleague, someone who means so much of you, who is in need of healing in body and spirit, we invite you to share that name as my eyes meet yours. For those names mentioned out loud and for those names that are still in our hearts, our Misha Berach again is on page 371 in Mishkan Tefillah. We traditionally do a Misha Berach during a Torah service, and that's why it's found here. Kenner.
Misha Berach Avoteinu Mekor HaBracha Le'imoteinu. May the source of strength who blessed the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishe Berach Imoteinu Mekor HaBracha La'amoteinu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say,
Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.
Before we get into tonight's drash, something more important and something more special. I've taught that I don't like the word conversion. It's too medieval for me. I like the word return because our Jewish mystics teach us that everyone in the world was present at that Sinai moment. For some reason, those people decided to experience different religious traditions, but when they have that destiny to reclaim Judaism, to return to it, the reclaiming and returning to that Sinai moment. And Ash, come on up. We celebrated your sister's return this year, and now, after your long study, please come to the bima. Baruchim abim Hashem Adonai, blessed are you who come here in God's name. We bless you in the name of God. At this sacred and joyous moment, we renew the covenant at Sinai between God and the people of Israel, recalling the words from the book of Isaiah, strangers shall join them and shall cleave to Beit Israel, the house of Israel. Adonai, we thank you for your many blessings. We thank you for the truth that you have revealed to all humanity. And above all, we thank you for the gift of Torah, which has been our light for a path. We call with reverence and gratitude all those descendants of Abraham and Sarah who have been faithful to you, and those who of their own choice have sought to serve you through faith, and Am Yisrael, the people Israel. Adonai, in your loving favor to Ashjana, in this holy place we welcome you into Jewish life. Knowing well the history of our martyrdom in years past, Ash has joined to join herself to our people's faith. We open our hearts to you, strengthen you in your resolve, help you to live in fidelity to the decision that you have already made yesterday and to the promise that she is about to utter. May she always find satisfaction and joy in the fulfillment of your sacred mitzvot. Grant you many years of strength and happiness and a worthy member of our congregation. We praise you, Adonai, whose presence is the fullness of joy, and together we say, and I ask the congregation to rise as we take ash before the Torah. Come on up. Do you choose to enter the eternal covenant between God and the people of Israel and to become a Jew of your own free will? Do you accept Judaism to the exclusion of all other religious faiths and practices?
Yes.
Do you pledge your loyalty to Judaism to the Jewish people under all circumstances? Do you promise to establish a Jewish home and to participate actively in the life of the synagogue and of the Jewish community?
Yes.
Do you commit yourself to the pursuit of Torah and Jewish knowledge? If you should be blessed with children, do you promise to rear them as Jews? You stand before the open ark, before the commanding presence of the Torah, the Jewish people's most cherished treasures. It has led us on the way and guided us ever since we received it at Sinai. It has been carried during the times of our greatest rejoicing, but also when we fled from burning synagogues and villages. We now place the Torah into your arms. Take it to your heart as you recite the Shema, the words of the lips of the Jews until the moment of death, the affirmation that sustained the Jewish people in the life since our beginning.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, Adonai is our God, Adonai is one.
You're known by the name of Ash, which means that you're always linked in love to those who gave you life. And from this time forth, when you're known within the Jewish community and when you bless the Torah, you're known as Batya, but Avraham v'Sarah. May this name bring respect and to honor to the Jewish people. We rejoice to welcome you in the midst of one who willingly and votingly helps replenish the ranks of our people. It's our great honor to give you the blessing that's been with all of our people throughout all the ages. And come stand right here. Face the congregation.
Yevarechecha Adonai ve'yishmerecha.
May God bless you and forever protect you.
Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka.
May God's face forever shine upon you, and God be gracious to you.
Yisa Adonai panav elecha ve'asem lecha
And when moments are difficult and when you face adversity in life, may God's face forever lift you up and forever bring you peace. And we want to thank God for bringing us to this moment with the Shehecheyanu.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehecheyanu v'kimanu v'higiyanu lazman hazeh. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehecheyanu v'kimanu v'higiyanu lazman hazeh.
Ash, this is your certificate of your return, your year to put up with me during your study, but I'm just kidding. But keep on learning, keep on studying, and keep on shining your light to your Jewish community. Mazel tov and welcome home.
Mazel tov.
Shabbat shalom, everybody. This afternoon, I unfortunately had a B'nai Mitzvah family meeting. It had to be canceled because the family returned back to Miami to attend the funeral of two more victims in the Surfside building collapse. Deborah Berzadin, of blessed memory, and her boyfriend Ilan Nebrif, of blessed memory. They were both 21 years old. And the cruelty of these deaths was that both of them were fulfilling the mitzvah to be there for the mourner. They were in Florida to attend a funeral for someone who passed away from COVID, and they passed away in an absolute, sometimes we can't find the words, and rabbis are commanded to find the words, but at this moment, the only thing that I can come to mind is simply cruelty. But I learned about this passing earlier because Deborah, 21 years old, she was a living descendant of David Horodork. I too am a living descendant of David Horodork. David Horodork was a shtetl east of Pinsk, and my great-grandmother, Anna Davis, of blessed memory, who survived the shtetl, who came to the States and eventually settled in Michigan, her and her girlfriends established a living legacy for those descendants who come from David Horodork. And it's an incredible organization. And why we celebrate the shtetl and my 3 kids, everyone wants to be in this organization. You have to prove to yourself that you're a rightful member of David Horodork. Sometime in the early 1940s, the Nazis came in and asked those descendants who were there to dig a hole, and we all know what happened. So that's why this heritage and living legacy, that's why it's so important to us. And when we got these news, it just continues to crush us. And we just found out that the death of Gary Cohen, a community member here, 8 weeks of endless incidents about Jew hatred, in addition to the agony of Surfside, it's hitting us at all avenues of life. And from deep pain and the frustrations that we have, in addition to the situation in the school systems, and it's not just Mountain Brook, it's everywhere in this country. It just seems not to let up. And next Saturday night, it's Erev Tish B'Av. And right now, we are commanded to be in the intense mourning period. For those who don't know, Tish B'Av, we mourn the destruction of the first temple, which was destroyed in 586 BCE, and then the destruction of the second temple by the Romans in 70 CE. What we also mourn the Spanish Inquisition, when we're expelled from other European countries, and so on. We need some good news, it feels. And during these past 8 weeks, congregants have reached out and wondered, what's going to be on my mind tonight, and how will I use the bema, this pulpit, to bring to light on pressing matters in the community regarding the Jewish people. But honestly, every time I come home these past Shabbatons, I tell Rachel, I tell my parents that it's not healthy to continue to talk about what's going on, to our people. And it feels nearly every single day my inbox is filled with other Jewish organizations and their tenacity and fight to go against those who seek to harm the Jewish people, whether it's filing Title IX lawsuits at UCLA regarding their abhorrent treatment of Jewish students, lawsuits in Seattle and in San Francisco regarding school curriculum. So many of these Jewish agencies are tracking this stuff. And I know it's tough on you to hear, and some of us want this moment to bring the joy of Shabbat, and I get it. It's tough on all of us, and as your rabbi, it's brutally tough on me. I do feel that we have a duty to talk about contemporary issues, and we do our best, and this is the hard part, to analyze what's going on in our society while maintaining the responsibility of being in the Jewish lens. And we have to answer the question, what will Judaism say on this matter? And so for tonight's drash, I thought about mentioning that there's going to be a large march in D.C. this Sunday. I don't know if you found out about it. It's a march to rally against Jew hatred, sponsored by all of the mainstream Jewish institutions and organizations. And then I thought, I don't think this needs to offer critical analysis of how this will enlighten our lives. I just hope that the American Jewish community will learn from this rally, this march, and continue to put its foot on the gas and not capitulate, surrender to the realm of secularity where we become forgetful. But for Shabbat tonight, I wanted to talk about something much deeper. Something that can still keep our awareness about Jewish life, but at the same time, which I think is so important more than ever, it's the celebration of being Jewish. It's a celebration of celebrating Judaism because we have a duty to that too. Our Torah portion, Matot Maseh, it's a conversation about the legalities regarding neder, nedarim, vows, and oaths. And our rabbi suggests that for the most part, any time that we make a vow or an oath, and when we do this, it's equivalent to that of a commandment of the Torah. So in other words, Judaism tells us when we make an oath or a vow, we better enforce it upon ourselves because we would be in violation of neglecting a commandment. On a side note, that's why the power of Kol Nidre, Erev Yom Kippur, and when we chant it 3 times, is because we always get that loophole that God forgives us. But nevertheless, I think this is the ideal Torah portion where we get to make a pivot, just for once, it seems, for what's going on. Despite the sorrows that we face as a people, and again, it's happening all the time, I think we continue to make the pledge and oath to love Judaism and to love and support all of the joys that Judaism brings us to offer. As I introduced tonight's Rosh about the devastating news of Deborah, who was killed in this tower, she was a living descendant of David Horodork, and I had the opportunity to go to Belarus my first year in Israel to lead Passover Seders, and I wanted to go there because I wanted to see where my great-grandmother came from. But this was a different experience, truly life-changing. I remember that we were in Vitebsk, and that's the home of the great artist Marc Chagall. We were with the Netzer teens, and that's the equivalent of our NIFTY, their young kid youth movement. And they were such fine, young, credible young adults who created such a vibrant community regarding their Jewish life. But when we celebrate the Seder, it's not like we came here to our incredible, beautiful Abrams Hall or Wheel Hall where we had caterers and it was a great time. This time, I want you to imagine that we were in an inner city apartment building that was secret, and in the bottom there was a bomb shelter. And this is what they used as a synagogue because of the horrible ethos of anti-Semitism in Belarus. But they made the best of it. This is what brought them joy, being together. And it's an appreciation that I always remember that even when we face such difficult times as Jewish people, it's proof that they can love Judaism even in secrecy. If they can find the joys during a really difficult living situation, al chat kama v'kama, all the more so, I think we are reminded of this. I think it's also joyful that Isaac Herzog became Israel's 11th president this week. And even the soap opera of Israeli political theater, she still endures. Though I'm sure it will continue to be complicated, I think this is a joy that we celebrate. Something good too, tomorrow night, over 100 young Jewish adults in Birmingham. There's a great program with Next Gen and You Belong in Birmingham event, and Danny Cohen and his team at Federation are doing a remarkable job of bringing back young people. So as much as I talked about the decline of Jewish engagement, here we are in Birmingham where 100 people are getting together. And as we speak, our friends down the street, they're welcoming their interim rabbi, Hillel Nori, to begin a new chapter, and that too should be celebrated for the joys of Judaism. And something else happened this past week. I haven't been able to use this space to talk about it because I've been compelled to talk about current issues. But we met with Beth El this past week planning our incredible Hebrew high school, 8th grade to 12th grade, that's going to be the day school that's welcome to all Jews in the community. Sponsored by the Federation and other donors, it's going to be simply incredible. And for the first time, this collaboration is possible. And when we did this, so many people told me that they thought these two congregations, we wouldn't do it, that it would fall through. But I wouldn't allow the old model of the Ashkenaz versus German Jews to get involved, and we did it. And I'm confident this is just the beginning of future collaboration with Jewish Birmingham. Again, a joy that we should celebrate. A pledge also requires that we defend our Jewish people. Ash, in her return, articulated this belief But this pledge we make is also our continuation to celebrate the good, the joys, and the gifts. Because even in the pain and anger we experience when we see it on the news or when someone forwards us an email that we always read, there is always good. Even during our darkest age, during the Shoah, the Holocaust, there are so many countless stories of those survivors in the camp that still displayed such empathy and goodness to one another and did the small things to make sure that someone survived. After Tish B'Av, Judaism says that this is truly when we engage the high holiday experience. This is where reflection and introspection, this is commanded in Judaism. I still think it's an ideal time for us not only to vocalize and fight for our people, but the essence of Teshuvah, to return to how Jewish life is so valuable for us. And God willing, we'll be in person for the high holidays, and we're going to be doing something new. Yes, we'll have 20 members of our choir, but we're going to change things up to make it more of an engaging experience, and God willing, we're going to have our Break the Fast Sharon. But this is the joy that we get to look forward to. In 5782, that's our new year, I think we'll return to the love of Judaism. And my oath tonight is that I will continue to use my voice and be loud and speak out. I promise you, I won't forget. But it's also ensuring that we display our love of our tradition and our people. That I want to see Judaism as a joy, as goodness, as a celebration. Even with all the politicking, all the hate, all the misinformation. This place was founded in 1882. She's still standing. Jewish communities are still standing. Even though we'll be enmeshed with statistics and data that doesn't look good, we've seen this before. We saw it 2,000 years ago. We saw it in the German-speaking states in the early 19th century. We've always found a way to rally, to pivot, and to figure it out. So we go on this next adventure. There'll be ups and downs, but I'm confident there'll always be joy. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. We turn to page 586 and we rise together for our Aleinu.
Aleinu לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
The top of page 593. In nature's ebb and flow, God's eternal law abides. When tears dim our vision and grief clouds our understanding, we often lose sight of God's eternal plan. Yet we know that growth and decay, life and death all reveal a divine purpose. God, who is support in the struggles of life, is also our hope in death. We've set God before us and shall not despair. And God's hands are the souls of all the living and all the spirits of all flesh. Under God's protection we abide, and by God's love we are comforted. A life over life, soul over soul, your light to shine into our hearts and fill our spirits with abiding trust in you. On this Shabbat, we recall the yortzites of Jean M. Abrams, Maud Schuster Block, Clara Grace Blutman, Morris L. Blutman, Solomon Max Brodowski, Bertha W. Bressler, Donald Chapman, Ellen Siegel Dorsky, Gladys Hanover Feldman, Herman Friedman, Ray Friedman, Norris Friedman, Harvey Gottlieb, Gloria Goldstein Houghton, Joshua Klein, Samuel Copeland, Leonard Lambert Rifkin, Ronald M. Leaf, Rachel Levinson, Nina R. Levitt, Philip Lewis, A.B. Loveman, and Clara S. Loveman, Dolores Lurie, John Ashton Majot, Allison Evans Mead, B. Miller, Judy Overbach Newman, Eva B. Perlman, S.E. Rosenberger, Leona Rothstein, Samuel Rudachevsky, Frank Sachs, Ruth R. Silverfield, Bertha Smolian, Dave Sokol, Jesse Solomon, Dorothy Steiner, Emmanuel Steiner, Sherry Ubin, Hyman Erdong, Samuel Wasserman, Elaine Weiner, Abe Weinstein, and Bernard Weinstein, and our heartfelt condolences on the recent passing of Harlan Aylen, cousin of Faye and Robert, Barbara and Jack, and Robert and Judith, and Rita Mendel, wife of Jack. We rise together as a united congregation for a Martyr's Kaddish on 598. Yikadal, Vikadash, Shemei Rabbah, Biomad, Divrach, Hiroteh, Vamlich Malchuteh, Bechayachon, of Yomechon, Uvchayet, called Beit Yisrael, Bagalah, Wizman, Kariv, Yimru,
Amen.
Yehei, Shmei, Rabbah, Mivarach, Leolam, Olamei, Maya, Yit Barach, Vishabach, Vit Baar, Vit Romam, Nihit Naseh, Vita Dar, Vita Le, Vita Lal, Shemei Kucha,
Brichu.
Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, damin ram bi'alma v'imru,
Amen.
Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim alenu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom, alenu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, Amen.
Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, me'imeru, Amen.
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shalom.